Welcome to my spell guide for the Necromancer. In this video I'm going to talk about the Necromancer exclusive spells. But before I start, I want to talk about the excellent PQ3 spell guide from the Throne of Odin. Highly recommended, and here you can see in this column all the Necromancer exclusive spells. So let's say, for example, you want to farm Chill Touch. So here you can see in this guide that you need to farm it in dungeon number 14, which is the Skullguard Keep. Just remember that in order to get the exclusive spells, you need to open chests with the Necromancer equipped. And the second thing I want to talk about is that this is just an overview guide. Please don't take it as gospel. I cannot talk about all the possible interactions between spells and equipment in this game. There are too many options, which is great in my opinion. The highly degree of customization that this game has is awesome. But keep in mind that these are just my opinions, and I'm just going to talk about an overview of the different spells. Now, the Necromancer has blue as its main color and purple as secondary, and this means two things. Number one, that at level 50 it gains an additional 100 mastery for blue spells and an additional 50 mastery for purple spells. And number two, that it has 5 exclusive blue spells, 3 exclusive purple spells, 1 green, 1 yellow, and 1 red spell. Now, that would be if the Necromancer was like every other character. But it isn't. For some reason, the Necromancer is the only character in the game that doesn't have one spell of each other color other than his main and secondary color. It should have 1 yellow and 1 red, but instead it has 2 red, which are Unseal the Tomb and Funeral Pyre, and as you can see, no yellow spell. I don't know if this is a bug or a feature, but it's the only class in the game. All the other classes have 1 spell of each other color, except for the Necromancer. And it has the same number of total spells. It has 11 exclusive spells, but it has 2 red instead of 1 red and 1 yellow. So, yeah. I don't know why. But let's talk about the exclusive spells, starting with blue. And they are in alphabetical order. The first one is Chill Touch. For only 120 mana, deals ice damage and converts yellow gems to blue gems. Blue has plenty of spells that generate gems and also deals damage, and this is one of them, Chill Touch. Now there is a generic spell which is Desert Night, which does exactly the same. It deals ice damage and converts yellow gems to blue. The difference is that this one is weaker in the damage department, and it also costs a little bit less. Also, Chill Touch was released on the game's release date, while Desert Night is from one of the latest seasons. So this was added much later. But blue has plenty of spells that generates mana and at the same time deal damage, such as Cold Snap, or the aforementioned Desert Night, or you also have where is it? Deep Shot also generates not exactly blue gems, it generates deep gems, but it can also be matched with blue gems and deals ice damage. And it also has, let's see if I can find it right here, Ray of Frost, which also deals damage and generates blue gems. So it's one additional spell. Now, the good thing about it is that if you equip 4 spells that can generate gems and deal damage, you're going to deal a ton of damage, and you're going to get stun rows very easily because you're going to have a lot of blue gems on the board. And in fact, I think I have a blue example here that uses Chill Touch and Cold Snap and Ray of Frost. All 3 spells generate blue gems, and then Frostbolt as the nuke that takes advantage of all those extra blue gems on the board and deals a ton of damage. So very solid, very good blue elemental build. That being said, the Necromancer ultimate spell generates death gems, and death gems, when activated, generates skulls. So most of the spells for the Necromancer are for physical builds, but it has a few odd ones. For example, our next spell, which is Corrosive Rain. For 130 blue mana, decreases the target's armor and resistance by a specific number, plus 10% for every skull gem on the board. If either is 0, then create skulls. A very interesting spell, again to use with the Necromancer, that combines damage to both armor and resistance and can generate skulls if they are both depleted. Now, one important thing about this spell is if you want to use a blue Necromancer against the Kingdom Dragon. Let's see if it loads. Come on, game. Thank you. And the Kingdom Dragon has 0 armor and 0 resistance. So yeah, this is a skull generator from the get-go if you want to use it against the Kingdom Dragon. It will generate skulls from the get-go, as I said. Very good spell if you want to generate extra skulls. The gimmick of only dealing damage to armor or resistance is a bit, gimmicky, but interesting spell. And it's also a good spell to generate skulls that doesn't deal any damage. For example, if you're facing the, what's the name? Draconus? Can't remember the exact name. Fallen Draconus, is this enemy that can put on a barrier, reflect barrier if you use an elemental damage spell against them, and this one can generate skulls and doesn't trigger that barrier. The next one is Hand of Evil. Deal ice damage and inflict terror on the target. Terror, as you can see, is a debuff that makes your opponents take 20% more damage if there are 5 or more purple gems on the board. So this is a spell that deals ice damage, but can buff the spell damage for purple builds. It's interesting if you want to use a hybrid between blue and purple, but otherwise very gimmicky. However, I'm gonna skip Legion of Doom. I will talk about it later. But however, if you want to use Mask of Terror, decreases the target's power by a specific number. If the target is suffering from terror, then there is a chance to stun. So these two spells work very well together. Hand of Evil will deal ice damage and inflict terror, and then Mask of Terror will lower the opponent's power, which will decrease both their physical and elemental damage, and because they are suffering from terror, there is also a chance to stun. Now the chance to stun is not very high, it's only 55%, but these are two spells that you can use together to increase your survivability, which is very useful during the mid portion of the game. When this spell is strong enough, it can lower your opponent's power by a lot, and that will decrease the enemy's damage by a lot. So an interesting combination between these two spells. Individually not very good, but together they can be useful. And the one that I skipped before, which is Legion of Doom. Legion of Doom transforms yellow gems to skulls. And it also has a chance to convert red gems to skulls. Now, the number depends on the rarity, the number of yellow gems to skulls. This 60% chance, if I remember correctly, depends on your spell book level. At maximum level, it will be 75% chance, which is pretty good if you have a lot of red gems on the board. Now, remember that this one transforms yellow gems to skulls, and Chill Touch transforms yellow gems to blue gems, so you cannot use both of them at the same time. Again, if you want to generate skulls with Chill Touch, you're gonna need Corrosive Rain or something like that if you want to use a hybrid build. Otherwise, you can use Legion of Doom because it's a very good spell to generate lots and lots of skulls. That is blue. The secondary mastery and color is purple. And we have Black Eyes. Please do not confuse it with Dark Eyes, because as you can see, the icons are pretty close to each other, and the names are also pretty close to each other. So, for a cost of 100 purple mana, convert red gems to blue gems with a chance to inflict Wither on the enemy for 4 turns. Is one of those spells that generates gems of a different element, different color. In this case, it's going to transform from red to blue. And the chance to Wither, I believe it also increases with your spell book, so it will cap at 75%. Wither doubles the effect of all negative status effects. However, when you're playing blue, there aren't that many ways to inflict status effects on your opponent. Freeze is the most common one with blue builds, but if enemy is frozen, it's going to only generate half of the mana. Yeah, Wither will reduce that down to 25%, but blue builds are usually very powerful without the need of extra debuffs. Green is the element that usually uses a lot of debuffs and can benefit a lot from Wither. But is, well, something interesting. Maybe you can make it work with other purple spells in a purple build. It's just that the blue gem generation is not really going to help you that much there, but it's a way to inflict Wither with a purple spell. Interesting, but gimmicky at the end of the day. The next one is Grim Scythe. For 150 purple mana, deals dark damage and adds a percentage bonus damage that increases depending on the rarity of the spell if the target has no armor remaining. Yeah. is again one spell that tries to put together a physical and an elemental build, and that doesn't work that well. If the opponent has no armor, you want to deal physical damage because it's going straight into the hit points. And this one deals elemental damage. So yeah, it's great that it's going to double my elemental damage if the opponent has no armor, but then why am I using an elemental spell? So it's useful if you're playing, for example, if you watch my video on how to farm the 5000 spells for each class. I use purple builds for that because the knight set and the Castle Crossbow are very good to increase your ultimate spell mana and therefore cast it very quickly. Yeah, you can use this spell with that build, but otherwise, yeah, a bit gimmicky. And finally, we have Soul Siphon. Heals damage, heals life, and it deals dark damage plus a percentage per skull gem on the board. Another spell that you can use if you're farming 5000s, but otherwise, yeah, it's I don't really know about it. Yeah, this is another elemental spell, deals dark damage together with Grim Scythe. So yeah, you can make an elemental purple Necromancer, but hybrid doesn't sound that good. Then we check green, and in green we have Poisoned Skulls. For 125 mana, generate skulls. The number of skulls depends on the rarity of the spell, as you can see, and it also has a chance to inflict poison on the opponent. There are many green spells that can inflict poison, but this spell is, if you want to play a green physical Necromancer, is very similar to the Mercenary Dirty Blade. The difference is that Dirty Blade for the Mercenary only generates skulls if greed is active. However, Poisoned Skulls doesn't require the ultimate spell to be active. And it also doesn't deal elemental damage. So it's very good against if you're facing the Fallen Draconus, because it's not going to trigger the barrier, the reflect barrier. And it's also very useful if you want to use a rainbow physical Necromancer build, which I will talk about a bit later. Finally, as I said, there is no yellow spell. As you can see, only the generic ones. This is the exception that breaks the rule. And then there are two red spells. The first one is Funeral Pyre. It deals elemental damage and generates skulls. The skulls depend on the rarity, the number of skulls. Problem is, it's quite expensive. 185 mana is quite a lot. And the fire damage doesn't really help at all if you're generating skulls, because are you going for an elemental or for a physical build? The second one is Unseal the Tomb. Costs 120, generates skulls on the board, a higher number depending on the rarity, with a 60% chance. Again, I think this 60% chance depends on the spellbook level, so at maximum level should be 75%. So with a chance to create extra skulls. In my opinion, Unseal the Tomb is much better than Funeral Pyre, and much cheaper as well. Also remember that if you're playing red, you have Gravedigger, which is a common spell that destroys a column with a chance to destroy an additional column and generates skulls as well. So it's not like you don't have enough spells to generate skulls. And finally, can you use all the skull generators in one build? And yes, you can if you do something like this with Darkfire Gaze, and for blue you can use Legion of Doom. No, I wanted to put it. Okay. Yes, you can play something like that. I mean, the problem is that you don't have mana generators. So yeah, you're gonna need a God Slayer and you're gonna need something else to generate enough mana. The best mana generator for any rainbow build is Ice Storm, because it explodes a lot of gems and that generates a lot of mana. And the best weapon is obviously the God Slayer, that also explodes gems. This one is only legendary and is purple, but at mythical rarity it will have 100% chance to explode 3 additional gems. So yeah, you can go all in with a rainbow build and generate a ton of skulls. You can also replace Funeral Pyre if you don't like, Unseal the Tomb if you don't like it that much, with Gravedigger, which will also, because it destroys a column with a chance to destroy a second column and generate skulls, will also generate additional mana. So there are multiple options, but yeah, the Necromancer is the master of skull generation. It's just a pity that it doesn't have any yellow spells at all, and specifically not a yellow spell that generates skulls, because yellow doesn't have any spell that generates skulls, and I think it would be cool for the Necromancer to have one exclusive yellow spell that generates skulls. But, well, it is what it is. Anyway, this is my video about the Necromancer exclusive spells. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.